Hello, Elwood Public Library. This is Dr. Sara Siddiqui, and we're going to talk about summer safety today. And I'm not sure if there's anybody joining us, but I'm just going to give a quick um, presentation, and please feel free to ask questions if you come on, or if you're watching this later, feel free to discuss later as well. But I hope everybody's enjoying this beautiful weather that we're having and enjoying the summer with your children. And I want to just make sure that we talk about trying to be as safe as possible and making sure that our children stay healthy, and you use all the safety measures that we're going to talk about right now to make the summer as enjoyable as possible. So, and just to kind of make sure that everybody knows that this does not replace any medical advice that you get from your own physician or pediatrician, and I would implore you to discuss any specific issues with them. This is kind of more general guidelines, and that we usually try to talk about at every visit, but if we can't, then we try to go use these forums to try to make sure that everybody understands that there are ways to keep our kids safer during the summertime. So with school out, and of course school's been out for a little bit, so the children have been home, but hopefully now with the warm weather, I hope everybody's enjoying outside. So I wanted to just talk about just a few tips, and we'll make this short, so if you watch it later, you can watch the whole thing. It doesn't have to be a long presentation. But I just kind of wanted to come on here and make sure that we discuss some of the important safety measures that we discuss in the office too. So whenever we think about summer, we always think about the water, so the beach, the swimming pool, the small wading pools, things like that, outdoors. So we always talk about water safety and making sure that we provide the safest environment possible to have the children be in. So I always say in my office visits, whenever I see the children, is the number one rule for being around water is to make sure that we're not there by ourselves. So for children, you want to always, if you have a pool in your home or in the backyard, or you're at someone's house with a pool, you really want to make sure that the children know that they should not be near or in the water without adult supervision. And what I try to remind the children is to make sure that not only is an adult around, but they should be watching them. So you really want to be within arm's length of the children if you're in the water with them, or if you're observing on the outside. You really want to be focused on the children in the water. You want to make sure that you have your eye on them, and you want to make sure that you're not distracted or talking to other people or on your phone. You really want to make sure that you're focused on the children in the water. So unfortunately, every year there are incidences where a child, unfortunately, is in the water, and there were multiple people around the water, around the pool area, and an instance occurs where no one really realizes that the child is having trouble in the water. So when we discuss drowning prevention, or we even discuss drowning, everybody kind of thinks about what they see on TV, where there's a child like flailing, and there's noise and lots of like attention given, but that's really not the case, and that's really is not how it happens. Unfortunately, it's very quiet. You don't really realize it's happening, and it just takes a few minutes. So really, we definitely talk about this a lot, quite a bit, and we definitely want to make sure that everybody understands that water safety is so important. And even a small body of water, so even a small one of those the plastic pools, or the pools that are smaller that you kind of fill in with your garden hose, those can be, even a small amount of water can be dangerous for small children or toddlers. if they have their face in the water for a prolonged period of time. So even those times, they should be watched very closely. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of get that, make sure we discuss that. If anybody joins, I'm not sure how I figure out if anybody's watching. I wish I could handle this a little bit better. You'd think that I would be, but if anybody has any questions, please, type them in the comments, and I will try to get to your questions as well. So that's about swimming. We do recommend swimming lessons for all children, starting at 6 months. But of course, swimming lessons in young children under 2 are very important, but it still doesn't replace adult supervision around the water area. So even if your child has had swim lessons, you still want to observe them while they're in the water. And the other thing that I like to discuss is to make sure that their swimmies or things that they use as flotation devices, you want to be very careful about how you choose those items as well, because some of the flotation devices aren't meant for learning how to swim. So a lot of the flotation devices that you may see, like the swimmies that you put on your arm, they, God forbid, if a child falls into the water or accidentally goes into the water, if they're used to having swimmies on, they're usually used to being upright in the water, and that's not a life-saving technique. If they were to fall into the water, they really have to be taught how to lie back and float with their feet kind of, in the laying down position. And that can be life-saving because it does give them a little bit more time above the water. So if they're not used to that, or they're used to kind of being in the swimmies, and then if they fall in without the swimmies, they're used to kind of staying upright, and that would mean they would kind of fall under the water much quicker. So, so the type of floaties that your child is used to also is important. Another thing that I usually like to talk about when we're talking about summer safety is sunscreen and sun exposure. So you want to make sure that babies 6 months and up wear sunscreen. So younger than that, we really don't recommend specific sunscreen products because their skin is so sensitive. So we do recommend to place them in the shade as much as possible. If so it's better not to expose younger babies to the sun directly. Not to say that they can't be outside, but they can remain in the shade, in a shaded area. You may want to avoid the hours of 12 to 4 because those are high sun hours, and it's important to be in the shade during those times. And sunscreen above 6 months, you really want to pick one that is compatible with your child. So if they have very sensitive skin, it's important that you be aware of that, and because there are some products that are very strong that can cause allergic reactions to some children. So you really want to try a small area first and make sure that it's compatible with your child. You do want to use a high SPF sun protection factor. Because the sun, it is a cumulative effect. So young children, especially if they're in the sun for long periods of time, and then that kind of every year builds on itself. So when you become a young adult or even older, you're more likely to experience the skin changes and possible changes in your skin, leading to some types of skin cancer, which doesn't happen till older, but it is a build-on effect. So the more healthy habits that you start when they're younger, when the children are younger, or even for yourselves, it's important to maintain that and continue to wear sunblock and sunscreen. So those are also important things that I like to touch on when we talk about the summer. Another really important item is hydration. So when we're outside and we're playing, and we really do encourage being outside. Definitely, even during the COVID-19, outside is probably a key place to be. Definitely, it's something that we encourage. So we find that kids are more active when they're outside, they're happier when they're outside, they have more room to play. And so it's really very important. But when you do all those things, you want to stay hydrated. So another thing that I encourage in the summer definitely is to increase your water intake to protect yourself from dehydration or becoming overheated in the sun, being well hydrated helps protect us and make sure that we don't get heat stroke or sunstroke from being too warm or too hot for prolonged periods of time. So you really do want to maintain hydration, maintain that cooling factor, make sure that you're drinking plenty of fluids, and make sure you're giving your child plenty of fluids. It's also an important thing to kind of think about when you're outside with the children. And so let's see. Oh, maybe right here is there a chat button? Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to see if I can try to encourage people to ask me questions. Okay. All right. And then another thing that I like to talk about when we're outside and talking about summer safety is making sure that if we're riding our bicycles or we're running outside or we're on the road, to make sure that you're following all road rules, right? And making sure that we're watching and making sure that we're watching our children on the road, making sure we're watching for traffic or possible cars on the road, but also more importantly to model good behavior and making sure that adults and children wear helmets when they're riding their bicycles. So when we're outside riding our bikes with our family, which is a very family-friendly activity that you can do together. You can even go to the beach. Sunken Meadow has a really great bike path, and there are plenty of bike paths locally too. But you want to make sure that you're obeying all traffic laws and making sure that you wear a helmet so that if there is a fall or off the bicycle, or there is an injury, that we protect our head, our brains, and to make sure that we're as safe as possible. And I encourage the adults to also wear helmets when they're riding around, just also to show children that it's important to wear a helmet. And we just want to also encourage just general good habits as well, making sure that we do have lots of activities planned for outside, making sure we spend a good amount of time outside, because again, it is good for our mental and physical health to make sure that we have lots of outdoor time. So let's see. What is coming? Okay, so I'm trying to see if I need to set something to make sure the comments are listed. Okay. Let me see if I write something. Okay. All right, and then just during the current COVID-19 pandemic, another thing that we like to recommend is if you're in a wide open area, not around a lot of people, it is encouraged to be outdoors. But if you're kind of in an outdoor setting and you're close to people, or there are a lot of people around you, it is encouraged to wear masks. Of course, if you're exercising or you're running or biking, and you're not going to be exposed to a lot of people during that activity. You may not need to wear one, or if it's uncomfortable for you, but you do want to try to get used to wearing a mask if you're outdoors and not able to maintain social distancing, because we do know that wearing the mask, more people that wear the masks, the less exposure and exposure there is, and it's more protective of everybody around you. Um, and The other thing I like to recommend, going back to children or babies and sun safety, is to also wear a some type of like sun protective hat. So we talked about avoiding sunscreen for under 6 months, but you do want to put them in like a sun, like a SPF, a shirt that can kind of protect them from the sun's rays. Even for the older children, that is an option for you if you're in the water or around in the sun area and you can't maintain, and it's difficult for you to wear the sunscreen. Then a sun shirt or a shirt with some SPF protection is something that can be put on. And Another important topic that I actually wanted to talk about today as well is the unfortunate circumstance of children overheating in the car if they're left in the car unattended by accident. If someone if you leave your child in the car unattended, it can be very dangerous for them. Just like leaving pets in the car, it does tend to get very overheated very fast. So there are incidences where, unfortunately, people either not going through their same routine or doing something different, maybe in the drop off or pickup, and they kind of forget that their child or infant is in the back seat, in their car seat, and they don't realize that they didn't drop them off at their daycare or babysitter, and they leave the car. So unfortunately, this is an occurrence that does happen, especially in the summer months where the cars can get overheated very rapidly. So we really want to try to check the whole car prior to exiting every single time if you kind of make this a habit. There are actually devices that you can get that help you to remember to check the back of the car. There's some like iPhone kind of settings or app settings that kind of remind you if you have small children that are traveling with you, and for that, unforeseen occurrence that you could forget that your child is in the back seat, it reminds you to check, to turn around and check. There are also car seat, I believe, car seat indicators or car seat attachments that you can get that kind of remind you to check the car seat or check the back. So that we don't forget that there was a child in the car. So this is also something that does happen, and we do hear about in the summertime. That is a very unfortunate occurrence. I'm trying to think what else that we kind of talk about in my summer, in the summertime when I see the children. Of course, the summertime is a great time to go see your pediatrician, get those checkups in. Now's the time. We don't know what the fall is going to look like, but in preparation for school and preparation for the fall, you do want to, contact your pediatrician, contact your provider, make sure you get all your healthcare well-checked needs in, and make sure that we do all the preventative care that we can right now. I'm also telling everybody as I see them in the office to get your dentist care in, dental care, get your eye exams in. Now's the time. The offices are, especially locally, because our case counts are down, and we did go down from 2% to 1% again in Suffolk County, so we're very excited about that. And you want to make sure that we continue to do that by wearing our masks, but you do want to take this opportunity to go and see your primary provider or healthcare person that you like to see. Even for adults, I'm recommending to get those to get your checkups in too, make sure that we're prepared for the fall, and get all your well checks in. So let's see. Is there any even any questions about anything previously I've discussed? Any ideas for any future topics? I know we're going to do another Facebook Live in August about starting school. Hopefully we're going to know more about how we're going to be in school at that time and what it will look like, and hopefully we will be in school in the fall. So that is a topic that's coming up. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments about that, please feel free to leave them on here, and I will try to get to them. I hope this series is kind of helpful to people. I am trying to just make it easier for you to discuss with a pediatrician. I think it's important for pediatricians to kind of be available to discuss certain topics, whatever topics that you would like, because I think that there is a huge need for discussing healthcare and childcare and just general, like topics related to children. And yes, there is a lot of information online that you can get, and a lot of things that you can get on your own. And I'd be happy to supplement those things too. But I just wanted to give an opportunity to our district and the subscribers of Elwood Public Library a chance to discuss things in person, or with me if you so choose. I'm just trying to see. Maybe I'm missing. I'm not sure. Maybe we didn't have too many people on, and let's see. Maybe I'm not seeing the people that are on. I see that there's a few people on, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay. All right. So. Okay. Miss Kelly Connolly is asking a question about masks for children at camps. So that's a great question. It depends on if your camp is outdoors and you're able to maintain some social distancing. If you're able to be at least 6 feet apart, which can be a little bit tough if the campers are all together, but if they're outdoors and they're able to maintain some distance apart, then they may not need masks. It also depends on their ages. Of course, for swimming, we don't recommend masks, so I didn't talk about that before. But no masks during swimming. The virus doesn't seem to be transmittable in the water, but also it's just not safe to wear a mask while swimming, so we really don't want to recommend that. But as far as the adult, I guess counselors or the counselors that are older should be wearing masks when if they're around the children. And you want to try to maintain like smaller cohorts, so making sure that there are smaller groups of children with one counselor, and they stay with the same group of people when they're at camp, and that is a helpful way to navigate camp. But we do recommend that if the local cases are low, that they attend camp. So an indoor camp that they're under 6 years old or under 6 people. So Miss Kelly Connolly is also asking about if they're indoors and under 6. So if they're under 6 years of age, if it's difficult for them to wear a mask, it might be a little bit difficult. It depends on how big the space is and how much of a distance they can maintain. The counselor or the adult in the room should be wearing a mask if there are any other adults there. I think it's a good opportunity, camps, to try to practice mask wearing for the children, so you don't have to. It can be a good place to kind of try wearing masks. Let's see. So it's a good opportunity to find that mask that may work for your child. You can try. There's so many different types of masks that are on the market now. There's cloth, different. I see the kids wearing the masks at work, and when they come in, they have all sorts of like shapes, designs. They have different brands, and it's quite interesting what the kids get drawn to. And when they find a mask that they like, and they find a mask that fits them nicely, they wear it so nicely. So under 6 years of age and under 6 people. Yeah. So if you try to leave it under a small group, so 6 would be considered a small group if there's like a large space, then they may be able to kind of remove their mask occasionally. The younger children, the studies are still coming out, but under 10 seems to be very limited transmission between children. But we always want to try to be, err on the side of caution. So we want to try to get our children used to wearing a mask. So a camp situation or these smaller kind of a smaller kind of, I guess, play time or camps is a good opportunity to practice our mask wearing and see how long we can wear our mask and kind of slowly build up to like a full, like an hour, or start off with 5 or 10 minutes and then take breaks. But if they're outside, that's a little bit easier to say that they don't have to wear the mask rather than indoors. So we really want to emphasize practice for the children to wear masks. Of course, if they're touching their faces a lot, it does get quite difficult, and it kind of it kind of does draw attention to that they're putting their faces or their hands on their mouth or on their eyes. So it is important to try not to do that when they're wearing the mask. So let's see. And I was just going to make it like a short, like a 30-minute talk today, because I know that everybody's enjoying the weather and enjoying the summertime, which is so important. And I hope that everybody's having a safe and healthy summer. And I hope that you're trying to be as safe as possible, but while still taking care of your mental and physical health, and trying to be outdoors as much as possible. So I think I'm gonna. Oh, okay, Miss Jessica. Yes, public playgrounds. I'm still nervous. Okay, so Miss Jessica Blech is saying, "What are your thoughts on public playgrounds? I'm still nervous to start allowing my children on the ones that I see open." Okay, so I think what you want to do is try. I mean. So it is up to you how much you want to be exposed, or how much you kind of are, willing to be around other people. I think that you also have to take into account what your own health risks are. But I think for children, it is important to note that that play is so important. So I think if they're old enough to start wearing a mask, or you want to practice mask wearing with them, put that mask on them and have them play outside. So you can encourage them to climb on the surfaces and be on the surfaces, but you want to, when they come back inside or when they're returning, you want to use that hand sanitizer, or when they come home, to wash their hands with soap and water. So what I've been trying to say is, when you leave the house, put that mask on, and when you return, wash your hands. So you really want to just make sure that they're washing their hands, and you want to make sure that they are not touching their faces often. So when they're in the playground and they're touching like the different things on the playground or climbing and things like that, you want to make sure they're not taking those same hands and touching their faces. So you want to practice that. So I think going to the playground maybe for short periods of time, whatever you feel would be beneficial for them. So maybe an hour, take them out, have them kind of go, play, and then when they return, have them wash their hands, then take off their mask and wash their hands again. So these kind of routines will help you and them to get used to, being a little bit outside your comfort zone, but being as safe as possible. I mean, it's hard to say what we're trying to express here is to kind of find a balance. So you want to find a balance that's comfortable for you and comfortable for your children and comfortable for whoever else is living with you. I think now that the local counts are a little bit less, that really does say a lot about how much we can kind of start venturing out. So I think I think you can go out and go onto the playgrounds and go on and go out with your kids, but you do want to, it's going to be a little bit different than how we used to do it. So if it's a really crowded area, maybe you want to avoid it and try the next playground over. And then when you return, you want to wash your hands. So the recommendation for when we return to school for the outside playgrounds and things like that are a little bit different than what you would do right now. So at the schools, we are recommending that there are small cohorts that we encourage that they go outside and use the playground, but there are small cohorts and then things are kind of wiped down before the next group of kids kind of come out. And you want to keep those cohorts with the same people, so same teachers, same children, go out, use the playground, and then come back in. The playground is, the items are washed down a little bit, and then, or wiped down, and then the new group kind of goes back out. So, but in a setting where it's more of a town playground where not as many people are there, perhaps you can. Be a little bit more, and you're there watching your children. I think it's a good time to practice with them what's going to happen when they do hopefully get back into school. So it is there is a personal kind of preference involved, just like before COVID-19, there was personal preference involved with what your kids were going to do and what they weren't going to do. So I think that same kind of thing applies here. But I also think it's important for the children to get out and for the children to be outside, play in the sand, play in the playground, because it's so important for our mental and physical health. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. And there's no easy answers to all of this. That's why when we encourage you to speak to your pediatrician, even when we talk to you at work or in the office, it's not an easy answer for me to give. Like there's no yes or no. It's always kind of like assessing your own personal health and your own personal risk factors and taking that into account, and also taking into account what our local case counts are. So that's why it's so important to know that, and that's why that we're going to use those numbers when we return to school. How prevalent or how many cases there are is going to determine how careful we have to be. So, but I think, wearing the mask, washing your hands, watching the distance. So 3 W's, and I found this online somewhere else, so it's not my thing, but the 3 W's is wash your hands, wear a mask, and watch your distance. And those are still the 3 main ways to mitigate the risk or reduce your risk. So yeah, so I think I'm going to end it here if anybody else has any other questions. And I think this will be posted, so hopefully, people will get a chance to watch it. And if anybody that's watching or anybody that watches this later has any suggestions, I know, like I said, in August, we're going to talk about returning to school. So I hope that'll kind of be a very lively discussion. And I am hoping that we stay low in our local counts so that we are able to return to school as safely as possible, and that we do have testing measures in place to make sure that we're able to adequately test and trace and isolate, and making sure that we have the proper ways to quarantine versus isolate. So we just want everybody to stay as healthy as possible. We do know that getting outside and enjoying the weather is going to help our mental health and physical health. So I can't stress that enough. Really, going outside helps us mentally and physically. So get outside, be safe, and I hope this was helpful. And I love talking on these types of forums. I really do enjoy it. I hope it's something that everybody finds helpful, and I want to continue doing it. And I hope everybody has a great night. So thank you so much.